Hi, it's Tristan here with a quick tutorial on making tiling textures the best way that I've found. And it's a pretty non-destructive process, and it addresses the kind of issues that you might have encountered in the past in doing tiling textures. So just to give an idea of how this works, so I have this texture that I want to tile, and I just kind of created it in Photoshop. And I want to go to Filter, Other, to take a look at what the problem is. So I'm offsetting this by 512, which is half of the size of the texture, which is 1024. And you see I have these sharp lines at the edges that have gotten essentially offset into the middle so I can see them. And a lot of times people will handle it by basically taking their base, making a copy of it, making an offset layer, then going to Filter, Other, Offset, doing it like that, and then basically either using a clone stamp or patch tool or whatever it is, and go through and try to correct these issues. One way to do it, and one way that I've done it a lot before, is you add a layer mask to that offset layer, and then you just basically paint with a very soft brush to get rid of the presence of those offset images. And then basically, if I were to look at this here, then it kind of looks like I've finished it. But in reality, a lot of times when you make an offset this way, where you have this T pattern, it actually has certain errors that are on the edges. And if you were to make another copy, so I'm going to select both of these layers and hit Control-Alt-Shift-E to make a copy of those layers. Then I'm going to offset this one again. And what you notice is it actually has more errors that you created when you created the offset, or that I created when I created the offset. And the only way to really fix that is to go in and try to either do another corrective pass or try to get it so that you can see those pieces and you can kind of pop out those details. But what I found is that it's easier to do this if you just sort of break this up into two different steps instead of trying to cover all of it with one offset. So what I do is I have a base texture, then I alt drag a copy of it. I call this offset 1. Then I go to Filter, Other, Offset. And I make it so rather than offsetting on both axes, I just offset on one. So I do 512 in this case on the vertical. Then I make a layer mask by clicking on the camera icon there. Then with just a simple brush tool with a soft edge, I just kind of paint across that edge to get rid of it, and I just make kind of like a single band. And then I select both the base and the offset 1 layers by holding down the Shift key. Then I hit Alt Control Shift E to make another copy that I call offset 2. And then I go to Filter, Other, Offset, and this time I add in the horizontal, so then now it's offsetting both. But the only thing that I actually have to paint in is that one side. So I do the same thing I did before. I add in another layer mask. And then I just drag it. And you'll notice that I'm not trying to be careful about the edges or anything like that. I'm just basically dragging straight down. And then what happens is if I create another copy, this is not part of the step. Basically, this is all you would need to do to set up your tiling texture. But then I could go and I could make a pattern out of it to prove it. So I'm going to hold down Control-Alt-Shift-E to make this new layer, and I'll call this Final Tiling. And then I'm going to go to Edit, Define Pattern, and I'm going to call this Tiling Smoke. Then I'm just going to quickly make a new texture, call this Tiling Test. Hit OK. unlock my background layer. Then I'm going to go and add an FX layer. I don't know if you can see that with my head in the way, but I go to Pattern Overlay, and then I select the pattern for the texture that I just made, and then just to check it out, you'll notice that it has that you see no seams or errors in this tiling, and obviously I'd still have to be a little bit careful with how I use this pattern because it has some repetition in it, but there's no errors anymore, and really I was able to accomplish that just by following this simple set of steps. Just make a copy of the base layer, offset it on one axis, paint across that axis, then create a copy of both of those layers, offset that one by both axes, and then really just paint it in. And so that way you can avoid any kind of issues, and you can also save a little bit of time. And I'm sure that you guys have other techniques and strategies too, but I just wanted to share mine because I think it's the fastest way I've seen of doing it, and I think it might be pretty helpful. All right, well, thank you guys.